10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome back to For Whom the Bell Tolls. We took a week off, but we are back, folks. I hope you like the new soundboard. Let me know in the comments if you could even hear it, because it is up for debate right now. I want to welcome everybody who's here with us live. I, of course, want to welcome everybody who's watching us on replay. And yes, of course, I have to welcome the person who the bell is tolling for tonight, my friend, your friend, the host of Talking Story, John Minton.
Yeah.
John.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands, John. How are you tonight? It's good to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. You are the king of production value, man. You brought in sound effects now. I bow down. I bow down to you.
Well, if you take like a sip break, I'm going to be, giving Jacob, offers under the table to leave your production studio. Jacob, it's not that bad in February in Minnesota. Forget what you've heard. You'll love January, Jacob. It'll be great.
Jacob's girlfriend is from Minnesota, and I think she's already told him all the true stories.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's all very not true. It's all, well, you'll see when you get here. Anyway, I've got your guest room all set up for you like we discussed. I mean, like we've never talked about before, Jacob. We've never discussed this. Anyway, let's say hi to some folks that are in the comments, and then we're going to get right into our show tonight because we've got lots to get through. Heidi's here. Of course, we love Heidi. 7 o'clock puck drop, like the blue shirts. Yes, Heidi is a community member of both of our channels. She's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Same with Britton, your nephew. My nephew is here.
My booktube nephew.
Darko is in the building. We're going to talk more about Darko tonight.
He is awesome.
And Dee is here from Britain, which is fantastic. Thank you for staying up late tonight.
Staying up
exactly.
late. Yeah.
Uh-oh, there's Evie. I had to put this in, Evie, just in case anybody wasn't sure which book you're most interested in this year. I wanted it to be on record on the interwebs that, things never go away. You enjoy that book.
Yeah.
And Capricious
Fox
my stack. Is here. And one of my favorite booktubers on the planet Earth, Joanna's here. And actually,
the assassin elf.
Do you know she's not only one of my favorite booktubers on planet Earth, on all of the planets in the solar system. She's that fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
Everything she does makes me think.
Excellent. Thank you, Rib Shack. Okay, cool. Well, again, John, thanks for coming on the show. It's interesting to me because I first encountered your channel right around about when you were doing your 1,000 subscriber party. So it was around about when BellTube got started, and I think I maybe saw you on Tori's channel. You've been on that, right? So I'm not mistaken in that. And I was watching you, and I was like, God, this guy's got natural charisma, or as my 20-year-old nieces say, he's got the Riz. So he's got the Riz. There might be hope for me yet.
If I have Riz at all, I sublet. I rent. I do not walk around with Riz. Jacob just made a face at me.
Let me ask you, is it like a subscription per month? You get so much Riz for a flat fee each month?
Yeah. I'm going to start putting that in a padded envelope and sending it out.
That is excellent.
This is how much Riz. I don't even know what that means. That's how little Riz I have.
So apparently, again, this is what I've learned from this newest generation. It is the middle syllable of the word charisma, but sort of with 2 Z's instead of an S.
Wow. This is, you know what? This is like reading Rainbow. I'm already learning.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. I've got that Geordie LaForge look going on with these classes anyway. So excellent. So, and Evie had just asked a question, and I was going to ask you anyway, but we might as well start off with it, and then we're going to go back into the backstory of John Minton, because that's what we do here on this episode of For Whom the Bell Tolls, but Evie had asked, what are we reading? I'll start with you, John. What are you reading?
I just finished Howling Dark, and I just picked up Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings, the Bulgarian, which Heidi sent to me, and I'm about halfway through Heidi, and I'm telling you, the video that drops tomorrow, I thank you profusely, because it's very difficult at my advanced age, but it's made me feel like a kid again. It is one of those stories that if you get this at the right age, you are initiated and a fantasy fan for the rest of your life. And it's just making me feel like the world is young. It is just magical, and I'm absolutely having the best time.
That is very, very cool. And I suspect you enjoyed Howling Dark?
Oh, loved it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I emailed him like the day after I finished, and I was like, I don't know how everyone thinks book 3 is the best, because I don't see how you elevate from here.
How it's going to grow, sure. How it's going to get even better.
Yeah, I just thought it was wonderful.
Well, I suspect the people in the chat already know this, but in case some of you are watching on a replay, on Talking Stories channel, he actually interviewed the author of the Sun Eater series, Christopher Rocchio. Highly recommend you check out his channel. By the way, Talking Story is linked in the description, so you'll be able to, go check that out for sure. But yeah, Howling Dark was fantastic. Demon in White, I had finished it a couple of weeks ago. Is it just better? As good or better? Yeah, it's just as good or better.
I don't see how. Next week, I'm going to his signing, so we're going to hang out in person. We're taking the camera, so who knows what we'll capture. It should be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you about it, because there were some elements of Demon in White I actually preferred over Howling Dark, and there's there's some elements of Howling Dark I preferred over Demon in White. And I think that there's room in the discussion that it's not necessarily sequentially getting better. I think there's aspects of each book that kind of have some peaks for me, but we'll definitely be talking about that.
Yeah.
I think Evie asked me what I'm reading. I am currently about halfway done with Men at Arms, which is Discworld. It is the second book in the City Watch arc of Discworld. I needed it after I got done with Demon in White, because I had gone from Shogun to Gardens. I went from Howling Dark to Gardens of the Moon to Shogun to Demon in White.
That's some heavy lifting. That's some heavy lifting, man.
That is very heavy, dense lifting. And so I decided, you know what? It's time to go back to some Discworld, chill out. But it's weird in that my brain kind of thrives on that dense, weird, difficult material. And I'm only halfway done with Men at Arms, and it's going to be a 5-star book for me, which is pretty rare. But I'm already itching to get back to Sun Eater. And I'm actually not going right back to Sun Eater. I'm going to do something different that I'm going to disclose this week on April's TBR, but it's pretty awesome. But anyway, to answer the question that was in the chat, I have not read the Bulgarian. So
you should do it. You should do it, Brian.
I will add it to TBR Mountain. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, this show is not about me. It is about the guest. And as some folks in the chat have mentioned, you do come from a theater background. But before that, now I think I saw on maybe some of your other appearances, you were born and raised in Texas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
That is. And how long did you live in Texas for?
Let's see. I was born and raised in a very small Texas town. There's about 2,000 people in the entire town. And I left pretty soon after high school, I think. And I lived in LA for 10 years after that.
Very cool. So your 20s were Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So when you leave a small town of 2,000 people in Texas, and I have to think it's somewhat rural, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of places that are 2,000 big urban populations, right? So you
very rural. Yeah.
You leave a 2,000 small town in Texas, and here you go. Now, did you drive to California, or how'd you get there?
It was interesting. I met a friend who had
Okay.
gone to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in LA and lived in LA for a good while. And he had written shows and produced shows, and he had written a role for himself in one of these shows. And he had gotten too old to play it.
Okay.
And we met in the theater and started hanging out and stuff. And it's like, I'm going back to LA and I'm going to produce this show again that I wrote, but I'm too old to play this role. Well, you want to go with me? So the way I got there is I drove with him from San Antonio to LA and crashed on his old roommate's couch and did this role that he had written for himself, but got too old to play.
That is very cool. So tell us about when the 2000 small town population John Minton arrives in Los Angeles. Now, tell me what went through your head, because had you been to LA before?
Good God, no.
Okay, so you've never been there.
I had been from my small town, which is 30 miles south of San Antonio, and I've been to San Antonio, and that was it. That was it. And I was scared out of my mind. I was scared to death.
So, because I would have to think when you, and I think again on some of your other interviews, you talked about being from that small town, you were on the football team. And if there was going to be a play, everybody was going to be in the play, and you did all these things. So everybody knows you, right? I mean, how big was your high school class?
My graduating class was 48 people.
48 people. Mine was 880, I think.
Oh my God. That's like Jacob's. Yeah.
Yeah. So totally different experience. So less than 50 people in your graduating class. You get a car from San Antonio, drive to Los Angeles. You must have absolutely been. I mean, I don't care how, when we're 18 years old, we think we know everything, but there's nothing like walking into Los Angeles from the small town of a graduating class of 48 people. Tell us about kind of the awestruckness or the just complete fish out of water you must have felt like initially, and how long it took to sort of stabilize your brain to, hey, this is actually where I live now.
Well, it was I was scared. The people I was living with would make fun of me, because they would be like, hey, get out of the house. Like, there's a store around the corner. Go get something to drink. Go get out. I would get in from my friend's roommate's couch into his car, drive to rehearsal, and come back and then not move again until the next day rehearsal. I was convinced if I left this house, I would never find my way back, because I grew up like, I know how to get there. It's by the tree down by the,
Right.
And now I'm in LA and it's like, no, I'm not leaving this. So by the end of this 6-week run, I had gotten off the couch. I had got a job teaching children's theater. I was doing the show at night. I was going out to some auditions. So I was borrowing cars and actually driving around. So by the end of the 6 weeks, I was pretty much, I was very lucky. I was very lucky and had gotten some attention and was like, I'm going to move here full time.
Very cool. Are you somebody that's naturally good with directions?
No.
Okay,
I am the absolute worst. All my friends call me Magellan as a joke because I will get lost from upstairs to downstairs. That's why I was so scared. And this was, again, I'm an old man. There was no such thing as GPS. There was no such thing as Google. We had what was called the Thomas Guide.
Yeah.
Which
you
was
open up that damn map. I know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a Thomas Guide of LA, and I was the worst map reader and the worst of directions in the world. That's why I would not leave the couch.
You were the guy that when someone told you, and then you go east, when you hit this intersection, you're already lost. You're already, forget it. You're trying to remember what direction the sun was when it came up in the morning.
If it's one of the 4 points of the compass, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. You need lefts. You need turn left at the rock that looks like a bear, not at the bear that looks like a rock.
That was my life, Brian. Yeah. That was my life. Yes.
Wow. So it's a 6-week run and you are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. Yeah. And now are some roles opening up to you, or are you auditioning, or what's going on? Because you're only still, you're not even 20 yet.
Yeah, I was 20 when
You were 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd been out of school for a while. I was 20, 22, 23, somewhere in there. Yeah, we got some, again, my friend going to American Academy, knew people that he had gone to school with. and he had them come see the show. He had them in the show, and they had connections, and they had casting directors coming to see us, and I was really lucky. I was really lucky. I got some attention and I got some work, and decided it was worth staying.
So when that happens, okay, because I'm sure things are different now. It is, we are talking about several decades ago, but did
More
you?
than several.
We're talking about 100 years ago, people.
Yes, I think it was before dirt. Yeah.
Exactly. But so tell me about that process, because it's interesting that you say you got some attention. Does that mean an agent came to you? Does that mean that somebody that was putting another show came to you? What does that look like?
Oh my God!
When
Do
you
really,
talk about attention?
do you really? This is such an inside story. You really want to? You really,
Absolutely.
I'll tell you.
Where else are they going to get it?
Okay. I feel weird about telling the story. Okay.
If I don't make you uncomfortable, then the bell is not tolling
right?
properly.
Okay. I just don't know if anyone's going to care whatsoever.
I'll cut you off if I start falling asleep. I'll cut you off.
If anyone in the chat, if we lose people, just let's,
Jacob, get the hook if you need it.
Jacob left. That's how.
Okay.
So okay.
He has faith in me to hold this together. I'm glad.
The first person was head of casting for ABC Daytime that saw me.
Okay.
He had me come in and got me in some day player stuff on General Hospital, I think, first of all. And then from there, they sent me in to see who was the head of casting for ABC Primetime.
Okay.
And ABC Primetime, you go in, and I mean, this is how far back this was. I was in the waiting room to go in to see the head of casting for ABC Primetime. And in the waiting room with me waiting for a meeting was the entire cast of Webster.
Awesome.
So it was me and the entire cast of Webster hanging out.
That is very cool.
So I went in and I read a scene for her, and she was like, oh, pilot season is coming up. We're going to, this is your way is going to be paved and all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I said, great. I went home like, man, I hit the lottery. And I was engaged and my fiance was back in Texas.
Okay.
So the end of the run of the show, and I'm calling the head of casting for ABC Primetime and saying, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get married. I'm going to save some money. I'll be back up here and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no. You don't understand. You can't leave. You can't leave town. If you leave town, especially to get married, you can't get married. You can't leave town. You don't understand what we're offering you. Don't do this. Don't make this mistake.
Right.
So being a good kid from a small town in Texas, having a girl wait for me, I made the call that it was the right thing to do, and I went home. Got married, saved some money, moved back to LA, and could not get anyone to return my phone calls.
Right. So, I mean, I think that probably is not uncommon of a story that the executives at a major network at the time, because again, in those days, you're talking about three offices, really. If you're talking about television, you got NBC, you got ABC, you got CBS.
That's it.
There was no Fox doing anything.
Nope.
There was no, the CW, let alone Netflix or HBO. I mean, that's it. And they were all very probably interconnected. And you're either on everybody's radar or you're on nobody's radar.
Right.
I can absolutely see how that could happen.
Yeah. So Bobby was real nice. The guy that got me on General Hospital got me back on General Hospital some, and I did a lot of stage work and hung out for close to 10 more years. And but yeah, no, it's so weird. Like my numbers never came up again. To that's my what if story right there. Yeah.
There's a lot of what if stories. I have.
Everyone has them.
Mine's opposite. I mean, really. Mine, I'll get into this when I come on your show, but mine is very opposite. I went with the career instead of the family, and we all have the what ifs. What if yours maybe what if I would have just stayed an extra few months in Hollywood to see what would happen? What if maybe
I should have stayed through pilot season, and that was my first wife, not the one that stuck. So yeah.
Oh, then forget her. No, I'm kidding.
She's the nicest woman in the world.
No,
she did not deserve me. Yeah,
but I did it the other way. I mean, I went full on nightclub owner. In in my dysfunctional mind, that was not conducive to a good relationship or a marriage or anything like that. And I
Well, it
basically
can't be.
married my business.
Yeah.
Right. And, so again, I do understand from the other side of that what that's like. It's difficult not to kind of second guess yourself for a long time afterwards with the what ifs. But, from me to you, friend to friend, I do feel it. And you're certainly not alone in that. I think that's
No.
it's a, yeah.
It worked out for me because after I was done with LA, I moved back to San Antonio. I met my wife, and we built a theater company and had Jacob. And I live a dream. I live an absolute dream. Everything worked out exactly what it was supposed to.
That is incredible. And you already sort of answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you how long you were in California, and you said 10 years. Now, clearly, not clearly, but did you do the typical, in between acting jobs types of gigs? Were you waiting on restaurants? Were you doing service hospitality work?
Yes, I did. I was I was an optometric tech. I worked at a detective agency. I managed a Blockbuster. I had every job you could imagine until like the next theater gig came up, and then I'm out of there. Yeah.
So we have that in common. We both worked at video tape. Were they videotapes or were they CDs by then?
Oh, no, VHS.
Yeah, that's what I was at too.
Yeah.
There was a store up here in Minnesota. It was more of a local franchise, but there's probably about 20 of them in the Twin Cities up here. And yep, I was, the guy that was calling people to rewind their videotapes. And,
We all had that job, right? We all had that job. Yeah.
was the craziest part is that we had, you didn't have this at Blockbuster because you were family friendly, but we had the whole adult movie section at our video store.
Yeah.
And I would have to call people when their movies were overdue and let them know that they haven't returned it. And I'm looking on this thing and I see like names that I'm going to high school with some of these last names going, uh-oh.
Oh man, do I want to make this call?
I don't know if I can make that call.
Yeah.
Okay, so Burton's asking, and that's an interesting job, working at a detective agency. What is that? I mean,
Okay.
What did you do?
Again, friends in the theater got me this job, right? And what we would do is we would do professional shops. We would go into businesses that suspected some of their employees were skimming off the top. So we would go in and when we kind of do a sting to where we would get that person pulled aside and go, hey, that's my wife over there. I want to buy this for her. I've got close to exact change here. I'm just going to sneak this to the car. Can you go ring it up for me after I leave? And then we had other spotters in it to see if they would actually ring it up or if they would pocket it.
Right.
And I was doing that kind of work. And then the detective whose license we were working under called me in and said, okay, I want to get your concealed permit because I think some people are running drugs out of a high-rise, the janitorial crew that's cleaning it after hours, and we're going to send you in undercover as a janitor and find out what's going on. And it was at that point that I was like, yeah, no, that's like a bad episode of Miami Vice. I've seen how this ends.
This doesn't go well.
Yeah, this is, no.
This ends up with the detective, trying to figure out how his assistant got murdered on the case, undercover.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm looking at this comment and tell me that you can't envision in your mind Philip Chase walking around in a park ranger outfit.
Yes.
Making sure nobody's leaving garbage.
With the hat?
With the hat?
Yeah.
It's got to have like the long shorts too.
Oh, yeah, the long shorts and just like, anyone that drops litter. Hey.
Yeah, I think you might have forgotten something there.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So, okay, so Los Angeles is done. You're moving back out. Did you go back to Texas then, or where is there a stop on the way? You were back in Texas.
I went back to San Antonio, the big city. 30 miles from my small town, but I went to the big city.
Is that where the Alamo is, by the way?
Yes.
Because I've been there, and I was trying to. Is it common? This is a little off topic, but is it common that people are underwhelmed when they get to the Alamo? Yeah.
Entirely underwhelmed. Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is, smaller than a mini mall by my house.
Oh, it absolutely is. More impressive than the Alamo is the set that still stands that John Wayne built to make the movie. That if you go to that set,
that would be cool.
That's more impressive than the actual thing. Yes, Phil had the hat.
Yes. All right. Okay.
So,
Well, I
but
think
yeah.
I know who my next repeat guest is going to be, and he's wearing that hat.
He's wearing that hat. He's got costumes you didn't even know about, Brian.
I mean, I thought I was the king of the costumes in BookTube, but apparently Dr. Chase has been holding out on us, everybody. Okay, so we're back in Texas now, and is this when you started the theater company?
Yeah. I moved back. Again, I had done a lot of work in stage in LA. And I was lucky. I mean, I did TV film stuff, but it's a line here or there, like it's nothing that I feel good about. It's not, you know, it's a line,
Right,
I want characters. I want work.
right.
So it's like, I'm going to move back home. It's the seventh largest city in the country. It has never been able to sustain a professional theater company that pays their actors and pays their designers and pays, I'm going to go and try and create this. I'm going to go and try and build this. So I went home to do that. And I got home and friends called me and said, hey, come on down and be in this show, get to meet everybody in the community before you start to build your own thing. And in the first read through, we're in the lobby. We all have our scripts, going to read through it for the first time. And in walks this young ingenue, this actress that has a role. And was just knocked head over heels, and we've been married now for 27 years, and got to talking to her during rehearsals and stuff, and she's like, I just graduated college, I want to build a company too, let's do this together. So we created a professional theater company together.
That is incredible. And it really, I mean, I think that it's obvious that you've got a great talent for art, but that's a business too. That's not just, putting shows
that's why
together.
I was lucky I had her.
Was she the business mind between the two of you?
She's a genius. She's a genius. She was the person that filled out all the tax papers and got us 501c3. She one night she'll do Shakespeare in the Park in front of 1,000 people, and then the next day she'll be filling out all of our tax papers because she has a mind that goes both ways. She's an absolute genius. And then when we got theater's a young person's game. We'd work 80 hours a week, easy, right?
Yeah.
If you had a show opening, and
Yeah.
we had Jacob. Things change. You get older. It's a young person's game. And then when that changed for us, she got accepted into one of the most prestigious creative writing programs in the country, and got her MFA in creative writing. So she's a creative genius. She is.
Wow.
I ride her coattails.
And has
all the way.
has the business acumen
Yes.
to make something like that work.
Yeah.
That is super cool. And folks, we will talk about his BookTube channel tonight. Don't worry about it. One of the things that you and I have in common, and there's a lot, but one of them is a mutual love for comic books. And I remember when I was a kid, now this is probably, I don't know, early teens or maybe even before preteen, that I thought the coolest job in the world would be if I worked in a comic book store, or if I were to own a comic book. That was like my dream, because that's where, for me, all of like the cool stuff that I was so into was all under one roof.
Yeah.
And I know that you are a lover of comic books as well, but you took that idea and actually went and did it.
Yep.
Share with us a little bit about what went into that decision and maybe where you did it. And and I'll probably have some follow-ups as we get into it. But
it was that time, right? I mean, we got to raise a kid. We have to, we can't keep working 80 hours, we can't do the theater gig forever. And I was very depressed. It's all I've ever wanted to do artistically and creatively in my life, right? And
sure.
And my wife was like, do whatever, what's your next dream? Dream another dream. And I'm like, I mean, I love comics. I've always wanted to have like a comic shop that's like, and this is, you and me are so alike, Brian. It's a community hangout. It's where people come and hang out. It's open. It's inviting. It's not that closed in with just the boxes, and you can't find stuff if you're not a huge comic fan. And she's like, let's get a loan, build it, go do that. And she pushed me, and I took all my contacts from theater. I took scenic designers that made custom shelves for the place. I had
Cool.
scenic painters that made custom gaming tables with murals painted on the tabletops, and I had big screen TVs with Xbox and PlayStation. So if people wanted to hang out and play games with me, they could hang out and play games.
That is incredible. That's something I thought about doing in the bar, actually. But I think it's more conducive, for a comic store than a nightclub. But
Yeah, and it was just a big hangout spot, and I was able. I'm telling you, I lived a dream. She helped me realize yet another dream.
so remind me, because I forget, what day is New Comic Book Day? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Used to be Wednesday.
It used to be Wednesday. I could not remember for the life of me. And I knew you were coming on tonight. And I remember that was the day that I would absolutely be hitting, that store. I wonder what it would be like now with all the digital medium, for comics, like on iPads and everything else, and these direct subscriptions that the comic book publishers really have to the end user.
Yeah,
almost
now you
forcing
pay
them. Right.
You pay a subscription and everything comes to your iPad.
Right. Forcing kind of the retailer out of the game
Mm-hmm.
for the most part.
Yeah, the collector though, it's not.
Yeah,
the
the
same.
collector,
It's not
yeah.
the same as getting that in your hands. Yeah.
And they want to be, there's an excitement level of walking in to see what is there. I think as like, I'm trying to remember, but I remember that I wasn't always sure which comics would come out on that Wednesday. So it was a bit of an exploration, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
maybe like 5 of my favorites would be there that day, or maybe only 2, and that week sucked.
Yeah. You're a big Spider-Man guy, right?
But I was a big Spider-Man guy.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I think I have every Spider-Man from probably around about 1979-ish to probably about 1993-ish.
There's some good stuff in there.
There really is. And one of these days I will actually go. They're all in, plastic bags. They're all sealed up. But one of these days I'll actually take a look at what I have. And believe me, when times have been tough in my life, I've thought about, there's,
There's boxes full of money.
there's comic books and, I don't know. There's money in the banana stand.
There's always money in the banana
There's
stand.
always.
Playing from Brian's iPad.
Whoa, what's going on with the soundboard? I had.
I've made a huge mistake.
Okay,
I've made a huge mistake.
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, and then we'll get more into BookTube here in a second. But tell us a little bit about those interactions when you had like gaming tables and all of that stuff. Did you have like regular gaming nights at?
Oh yeah, we did Friday
the
Night
thing?
Magic. We did Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and
Okay.
Pokemon tournaments and Friday Night Magic, and we had regular subscribers that would be there every Wednesday to pick up their sub box, and all the new stuff would be, again, I wanted to make it to where it was so easy to navigate. All the new stuff was across on one area of shelves, right? If the Wednesday stuff was on this shelf, Marvel here, DC here, Indies there, and it's then like going down this the week before, the week before, the week before, and then it wouldn't go into boxes until 5 or 6 weeks
Sure.
on the big shelf. So we had subscribers. It was a hangout, man. It was probably a lot like your bar was, but just way more nerds.
Tell me, do you have any nerds that come to mind when you think of the most oddball person that was a regular at the comic store? Does anybody just jump out at you? And if not, that's okay too.
No, because I was one of them, I people that would come in and go through the big catalogs that would come out and just pick statues and spend thousands of dollars on statues. That kind of freaked me out sometimes. Like, how can you afford this? But, everyone has something.
That's very cool. Well, I know a lot of people are here to talk, to learn a little bit about your BookTube journey. So let's segue into that a little bit.
And that's where I just ride Jacob's coattails.
And that's why he's hired the minute him and his girlfriend moved back to Minnesota. And,
She lives here now. Her family lives here. You're going to be out of luck, Brian.
I'll find you, Jacob Minton. The bell will toll. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk some booktube here for a moment. Now,
Okay.
when when you started, it was just almost a year ago. I think you and I talked about you started about 10 months month
Yeah, I think
ishes
it's like
ago.
right around 10 months for me. Yeah.
Were you watching a lot of booktube before starting?
Not for a long time. I had gotten to the point where I was reading my favorite authors, and of course, doing theater, right? You go through long stretches of time where I'm running a theater company and reading nothing but plays. Like that's all I'm reading, because I'm putting a season together, and I'm putting a young playwrights festival together, and you're just reading scripts and plays and plays and plays. So it's like reading just went away for a good while, and then you open a comic shop and you're just reading comics and talking comics to and then after that, I wanted to get back into reading. And I started to go back to some of my favorite authors, and I wanted to find new authors, and I would look up lists of best of fantasy or best of horror on the internet. And that book, it looks interesting. And I was getting diminishing returns. It's like, I don't know if that'd make my best, And I kept doing this for a while and kind of just not being happy with what I was finding. And then it's like, I don't know why. One day it just struck me like, I think I've heard of this thing like BookTube. I'm going to look at that and see what I can find.
Sure.
And I looked up BookTube for horror fantasy. Mike was the first one that came up.
Right.
And then it was a rabbit hole. Like it's like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like this is what my comic shop used to be. This is the older you get, it's kind of hard to have friends because you built a business, you built a family,
Sure.
Life gets in the way. And it's like these are just people hanging out talking about books. Like, oh my God. And I started watching and finding others, and then I would start to leave comments. And I had been chasing my kid and my wife around the house forever with comics and books going, this is so cool. Have you, and if they please leave me alone.
So they were just as happy that you found BookTube as you were as happy.
It was actually Jacob's idea. Like, I will build you a channel if you,
Sure.
if you want to talk with these people and get to know these people, like I'll help you build a channel. And that's kind of what happened.
I mean, that's really cool. I was actually on Talking Story earlier this morning, and I went back and watched
Oh my
your
God.
very, very first videos. And
I don't watch any of my videos.
I don't watch mine either.
Are you serious? I'm totally serious.
I don't. I did this last week when I took the live stream show off last week. I did watch it because I wanted to sort out. I hadn't done live streams at all. It was never, ever in my plan to even do these live streams. But
Really?
no, never. It was going to be
It's
a
the
year.
funnest part.
It really is.
It's the funnest part. You get to meet people and talk to people.
I had no problem being on live streams. I had no real, I don't know if it was a lack of confidence or just kind of like, I think there's probably people more suited to be an interviewer than I am.
Stop it.
Yeah,
You need to stop it. Stop it.
Well, the self-doubt can creep in from time to time.
Well-
but it certainly, I accelerated and again, to a lot of what I talk about on the channel is just sort of like feel the fear and do it anyways. That's why I started doing these live streams, was because it seemed like, I don't know if, anybody's going to ever tune in for this. So I better do it because otherwise I'm not taking my own advice and I don't want to be a hypocrite. So if it's something that I don't know if I can do, then I almost have to do it.
You got to do it. You got to do it.
Right. So
And it's the payoff. It's the payoff for doing this is to get to meet people, and they're the best people in the world.
It absolutely is. So I'm watching your early videos, and it's interesting because, like you said, you started to cringe a little bit when I said I went back and watched. They're actually pretty good. And it's funny because your trailer on your channel, I don't know when the last time you watched your trailer was, and I don't know if it was your original trailer that you filmed where you're holding up a sign in the window saying, does anybody want to read these books with me?
That's the very first video we made. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And
Yeah.
so I think that does provide some insight in how your channel has exploded in the way that it has. And I know that you're a humble guy, but the truth is that it has done exceptionally well. And I can tell just from watching that first video where honestly, most people's trailers, when they're just getting started, there's a tangible difference between where they are today versus that. You've obviously made great gains and had great improvements in your production and everything, but I could tell from that trailer, no, this guy definitely is good in front of a camera. He's entirely comfortable. He's got the faces down. He has his expressions down, that he can convey an emotion or a feeling with a look that is sometimes tricky to do. Now, again, I'm coming from it knowing that you're a theater guy,
Yeah.
but had I not known that,
Kind of
and
cheating, right? Yeah.
right, it is a little bit of a cheat code. But had I not known that, and you're this guy with this cool trailer, and you've got folks, if you haven't seen his trailer, it's hilarious. It's short, it's like 4 or 5 minutes or something like that, but it's really good, and it kind of informed how the direction of the channel, at least for me, when I watch you, went, because it started off playful, and it started off like, this is a guy who's looking to have fun, and this is a guy who's not taking himself overly seriously. And that's a huge part of what I try to do here, is not get so into the weeds of being so serious about everything, because I think there's other places for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I am not AP Canavan or Dr. Philip Chase. I'm never going to be comfortable breaking things down to that level. You know what I mean? I think I would look silly. But I can get excited about things I love and what I love and what I want to share. I can do that, and I'm comfortable doing that. And I mean, dude, you're the one that's exploded like huge, man. Like it took you no time to hit 1,000. Like I remember early on, it was like I was hoping for 50, 100 people that I could talk books with and stuff.
Sure.
And I mean, there was so many months where it basically like, and we've changed so much. Jacob and I banter back and forth now. I'm not in front of a green screen during lunch break at my work now. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many changes, and it was so much at the beginning. I thought I was just shouting into a bag and then throwing it out the window. You know, like it took forever. I didn't have a Goodreads account where I did reviews. I didn't have a Facebook account. I have absolutely no social media account whatsoever. I had nowhere, anywhere, any friends online to let them know I was doing anything. So people just had to find me in some weird algorithmically,
Right.
whatever that magic is that YouTube does, you know?
It's impressive to me on lots of levels. And like you said, your channel in its short history, I mean, not even a year, that it's pretty incredible, the growth. And I do really appreciate the fact that you're constantly tweaking stuff. As somebody who spends a lot of time in the editing bay, I notice when all of a sudden John's a little bit closer to the screen than it used to be, because it used to be a further back shot. And you guys made the decision, now let's bring John in a little bit closer and feel like it's more of a conversation between friends. And I absolutely noticed that.
Yeah.
And
that's all Jacob.
And this set is fantastic. But the set isn't what's doing it. The set's
That's all
great.
Jacob.
But
I have nothing to do with any of this, Brian. I swear to God. I had a kid, and I didn't want him to go into the arts. And then he grew up with me and his mom, his parents, and he loves the arts and wants to be a filmmaker and went to school for that. And it's a cheat code for me.
Yeah.
I come in here and sit down. I don't understand any of this.
Well, I think you're obviously very fortunate that your son is in line with you wanting to do this. I also know smart people from maybe less smart people, and you are certainly capable of doing this. You just don't necessarily have to do it solo, which is the which is a mark of a great business person. But you have you have evolved the channel, and the banter with Jacob works.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah.
It's fun, and it emanates off the screen. And, it's interesting, because sometimes when I'm talking into the screen and there's nobody else in the house with me, I don't know if those emanations are really coming through the screen or not. Are they in on this joke with me? Are they going, what is this guy doing? But I think having that banter with Jacob has absolutely elevated what you guys do. And you can even tell by the numbers. Like a lot of people, when you got started, you did what we all do. Here are my top 10 sci-fi books. Here are my
Yeah.
top 10 fantasy books. Here are my
Yeah.
top 10 horror books. That's all we do because that's what people are going to
That's
tune
what
into.
that's what we wanted to do. That's why I started this.
Right.
Was to join the conversation with everyone else. Yeah, it's fun. It's
Right.
exactly what I wanted
It's
to
like
do.
because when someone does a top 10 list and they say, well, leave in the comments what your top 10 list is.
Yes.
It's the elevating from that going, well, how about this? How about
Yeah.
I put a video together with what my top 10 lists are and join in on that conversation and join
Yes,
in
it's
that party.
The best. It's the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
it is.
And I really think that having done that and watching those videos has now allowed you to do weekly readers, which, like I've told you a million times, and I'm going to keep telling you every Sunday, as long as you're willing to read the comment, it's one of my favorite things about every Sunday.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to, at some point on Sunday, turn on John and watch Talking Story and chillax and see what John's about. The episode last Sunday was possibly my favorite one you've ever done. And if for any of you guys that haven't seen it yet, Jacob was out of town, and so they filmed the weekly readers back to back, with John having read nothing.
I don't have a week's worth of reading to talk about.
It's something I would do. And that's why I was like, oh man, I can't wait to have John on the show this week, because that's something Rick Thunder would do. He'd come on and say, here's how the books that I didn't read, you guys. And this is why they're the greatest.
And I talk about, what happened the week before. Me and Library of a Viking are going to get together. No, we're not. That's not going to work out. Like, it was just, I think back and it's like, but I didn't want a Sunday to go by, because the thing that blows, this gobsmacks me, Brian, absolutely gobsmacks me. And I answer every comment as quickly as I possibly can, right? I mean, I like to answer immediately, because it's the whole reason I started this, was to meet people and talk to people that love books like I love books. Like that was my whole end goal. So to actually have people that are watching this and willing to talk back to me, oh my God, like I'm completely flabbergasted, right? That somebody would go, hey, every Sunday night, I'm going to tune in and see what this doofus read. Like, really? Okay, that's amazing. I will never get tired of those comments, because it's magic to me.
This guy, I've heard of him before. Jacob Minton? Minton. I am certainly not. I should think about hiring this guy. I don't know.
Let me tell you, this guy is a talented, very, very talented young man.
It's awesome, but it is very true that I do tune in to watch. You're highly likable. It is, not only are you well read, and not only do you have a great story, and you really do, not only do you have passion for what you're talking about that really does flow off the screen. I am telling you that there are very few people on BookTube, or really on any, subsection of YouTube, that come across as genuine and real and passionate and as playful as you do. And I think that speaks to just who you are as a human being. So it makes sense to me that people want to be subscribers to Talking Story. It makes sense to me that people want to be part of what the John Minton universe is all about, because you can't help but smile being around you. And I know you have bad days. We all do. But I wonder, does the theater, let me ask you this question. Does the theater background help when that camera light goes on? Because we don't always have great days, but we're not going to pollute our audience with that.
Yeah.
Does that help?
I'll tell you, I feel like I'm the luckiest man alive. And I try and keep that every day. Right? I have the best life. I have the best kid. I have the best wife. I live in a lovely house. And sure, things happen, and you have things to get over, and you have obstacles and things. But it's like, when I slow down just long enough to consider what some of those obstacles are like for others, I am the luckiest man alive. Like my wife has enabled me to make my dreams come true several times in my life, right?
Right.
My son has allowed me to bring this harebrained dream true. I I don't. The weird thing is like the passion and who I am, all the excitement and stuff. Like I spent years in theater learning. Okay, forget everything. Just come out and be you and live the moment, right? And then I do that, and I tend to be a little bit amped up. Just normally, that's just who I am. And I have directors go, whoa, turn it down a little bit. You know, any more animated, you be a cartoon. Now
Sure.
I don't have to pay any attention to any of that. I can be as enthused or passionate as I want to be. And it's all genuine. It's all real. I have not had a bad read since I started BookTube because of the back and forth and everyone telling me what to read next. And it's like, they're all amazing. It's the best thing I could have ever possibly done. So I can't think of a minute when I'm tired or a minute when I'm hiding in some way a bad day, because I am sincerely blessed and lucky.
That's awesome. I mean, just the whole gratitude piece of you that, like I said, it really emanates out into the things that you do, and your gratefulness for, like you said, all the things that you do have in life and all of the dreams that
Sure.
have been able to be accomplished. That's a really good thing to keep top of mind. Has
Yeah.
that been something that you've been able to do for a long time, or is it more later in life that you've kind of kept that gratitude state of mind?
I think it's later. When I was a kid, younger, I think about my time in LA, and you really want to achieve some things, and maybe they don't come, and you think you missed your shot, and then they don't come, and then you can get pretty dark, and you can get to some dark places. I've been that discontent artist. Yeah,
Right.
I've been that.
Right.
And I had no rhyme or reason to be. Like there was absolutely no rhyme or reason for me to be that.
But at the time, it made sense
But
for
I
you.
was. And
Yeah.
I think the older I get, and it's like, I'll be honest, we've had challenges this year as a family.
Yeah.
And I know you have too, Brian.
Yep.
You've had some trips you weren't planned for, some challenges as a family. But you know what? It's family challenges. And I have what I think is the people I would go through the gates of hell for
Right.
in my family. And whatever challenges there are, I'm the luckiest man alive to be going through them with these people.
Right.
So you just try and you just do what you got to do, you know?
We are certainly both blessed in that, because we are fortunate. Not everybody has that, the family strength and those
So
bonds.
supportive and
It's just-
there and yeah. It's,
And honestly, at the end of the day, if you do have that, that is a huge blessing.
you're a
And
wealthy man. You're a woman. Yeah.
You really are. Let's dive into a little bit more bookish stuff, because
Okay.
we're gonna. I like to keep you on your toes. We get into deep stuff, then we get into stupid stuff, then we get into deep waters, then we get into shallow waters. We go
I love it.
everywhere.
You're so good at this. You're so good at this, Brian.
Well, thank you.
If you hear anything tonight, hear how good you are at this, and hear how your channel has taken off like from ground zero. It's not amazing to me because I watch every video you put out. Like there's a list of people I watch every video they put out, and it's because I enjoy it and I think I can learn something from what they do, right?
Sure.
And you've made that list before you've even hit 50 videos because you're fun, you've got interesting takes on literature, and it's like I'm telling you, you are such a natural and so good at this.
Thank you. It's God, I'm looking at some comments, but that is extremely kind of you. It's something that I just enjoy doing, and for me, this is kind of nightclub 2.0.
Yep.
Because I missed it so much, just throwing parties and having that sense of community.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of staff, and because I was there for 15 years, there was a lot of different people in staff, because in hospitality, people come and go, but the owner's
Sure.
generally there the entire time. So, there's hundreds of people that worked there, and there were probably, I don't know, 500,000 to 1,000,000 customers over the time that I was there. And just talking to nobody all of a sudden was something very strange to me. So this really became Nightclub 2.0. So thank you for those kind compliments. Like we were talking about prior to going live, I am not sure YouTube knows what to do with BellTube, because sometimes I talk about books and sometimes I am book adjacent. And
But it's
sometimes
so fun. But the thing is, it's like you took me back to some great reads from the 80s that I hadn't thought about for forever. But it was still a great time. It was still book adjacent, but it was still books.
That's right. And that is a fact. Absolutely. So let me ask you, you're obviously, in this genre, in this corner of BookTube, doing fantasy and sci-fi. And I watched your interview yesterday with your friend and author. And
Oh, David, yeah.
Yeah, it was a super cool interview. And I do appreciate what he was talking about. That historical fiction is in fact fantasy. And there's no offense to John Minton, but I think one of the ways that he described it, I think, was even better than how you had described it. And that
I have no doubt.
and
David's a smart guy.
he really is. And what I'll share with some of you who haven't seen it, and you should absolutely go check out that interview John did yesterday. It's live on his channel now. He talked about historical fiction being fantasy because up until recorded history, there just isn't that much information to draw from. So you're really forced into doing world building. And what is more world building than fantasy? And just because something doesn't have a magic system, it doesn't necessarily matter. There's plenty of fantasy books I've read that had such a light magic system. It was barely there. But the world, because it took place in a land that, had 3 suns or did whatever, it falls outside of Litfic and becomes fantasy. But I really appreciated what that author and your friend David was talking about. Tell me a little bit about, your relationship with how you look at fantasy through that lens, because for those of you who may not seen it, I'd like John to talk a little bit about, and I know this stemmed from the Warlord Chronicles. I know I'm meandering a little bit, but maybe if you could go into that a little bit and the historical fiction as fantasy topic.
Okay. I love the Warlord Chronicles, and it was voted. I put it out there for the people watching my videos, subscribers and such, to vote on what my birthday read would be. And the Warlord Chronicles Book 1, Winter King, won.
Had you ever heard of Cornwell before?
I had watched quite a bit of the Uhtred, Son of Uhtred, because my dad had no creativity. I had watched quite a few of those episodes, so I knew who Bernard Cornwell was. I had never read anything by him. So it's like, hey, right on, man. Like, I like this show a lot. He's somebody I should definitely probably read. So I picked it up, and it's like, oh, it's just smitten. First of all, I'm an Arthurian geek. Like, I just love it. I read T.H. White in high school. I when HBO first came on, I watched the Excalibur, John Borman, and Camelot, the stage version of Camelot with Richard Harris and the Blue Eyeshadow. I watched it like a million times. So I just love Arthurian stuff. And so I was smitten, right? And as I'm reading through these books, it's like, this is fantasy. Like, there is a magic system. This is all about the power of faith and willpower to define your reality through your ideas of faith and will. And it's paganism versus the new upstart of Christianity and what's going to happen. And by the end of book 3, there is so much magical things going on that become harder and harder and harder to rationally explain. If you work at it, you can, sure, and call it just historical fiction. But there's a lot that goes on there. And then I read another author that I heard from Josh at Red Fury and Joanna and so many other people, Guy Gavriel Kay. I just read Song for Arbonne. Warlord has way more magical stuff going on than Song for Arbonne, and we say that that's fantasy.
That's fantasy.
It's all about the marketeers and how they want to put it in what box, on what shelf, to find what audience. And you know what? It's all about finding the story that speaks to you. And if you have to cross a shelf, Nazi, to go to another shelf and find it, then that's what you have to do. I hate that people like David Mitchell, who writes amazing horror, sci-fi, and fantasy elements in almost all of his books. I have to go over to literature because that's,
Right.
But I'm sorry. That's a lot of sci-fi over there.
Absolutely. Well, and I think in one of your earlier videos, you had a Vonnegut book as well in the sci-fi, and you're not going to find Kurt Vonnegut in the SFF section at all.
No. He's going to be in lit, right?
He's going to be in lit.
Yeah. And what makes that dividing line? What makes that dividing line between historical fiction and historical fantasy? And it's like, I'm sorry. A good story is find that story that speaks to you. Go to whatever shelf you need to go. YA, there's amazing stuff at YA.
Right.
Like I hate the ghettoization, the separation of shelves.
It really is. I mean, the only thing that I was in favor for is when Romantasy started to get its own shelves, because I was like, okay, cool. I don't need to go over there. Although if my friend Laura from Fantasy Awash is watching later on replay,
she loved it.
She's into that ACOTAR.
She got all in, man. She went all in.
I read the first ACOTAR book. I did it as a buddy read with my niece. So it was what it was, folks.
You're a good Uncle Brian.
But I thank you. But I have good nieces. But I agree with you. That separation of the shelves at retail is, it's just another thing that kind of is kicking retail down the door, or down the curb rather, when it comes to purchasing and shopping in general, because you don't run into that when you're shopping online.
And that's what I love about BookTube. Like, I probably would not have picked up Bernard Cornwell.
Right.
And it ended up
I'd
being
never
the
heard
trilogy.
of him.
The trilogy ended up being, even though I was a fan of the show, like I've watched almost every season. I think I've watched every season except for this last movie, which people tell me don't bother. It's why I haven't watched it. But I watched every season of that show, and I probably would have never picked up those books. And they ended up being such a special read for me. You know?
I loved it. I would have never read it if not for Mike. And when Mike was on For Whom the Bell Tolls, at the beginning of the episode, I listed off absolutely everything that he has directly influenced me to read. And that The Warlord Chronicles was certainly there. I'd never heard of Bernard Cornwell. It just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
But I am also a huge, sucker for an Arthurian legend. And I loved how this was, because certain characters are just so different than they're depicted in, the standard mythology of it.
And to have it all through the eyes of Durfel, right?
Right.
Like every man, as he sees these icons pass before him and
Right.
describe what's going on. And then he gets wrapped up and he has to choose this magical dark path for the love of his life. So come on, it's the good stuff, man. It's the good stuff.
It really is. And if not for BookTube, I
would've
certainly
never picked
don't
it up.
read it. I don't pick it up. Same with
Yeah.
my book of the year last year, Lonesome Dove. Again, if not for Mike, and if not, through Brian Lee Durfee. By the way, Brian Lee Durfee, get better soon. We need you back on BookTube.
Absolutely, my friend. It's so shattering to me. Like, I just finished book 3, and I know you love that trilogy, Brian.
Love it. I
Just
love
finished it beginning of this month, right? So I'm ready for the buddy read, and Josh was saying Brian's going to join us, and I'm like so thrilled and excited to get to this last talk, and it's like I was just from left field.
Yeah. For those of you who are watching, Brian Lee Durfee, awesome author. The best. He's the best on BookTube. He's just fantastic. Had
Makes
some
me
health
laugh
issues.
every time.
Oh, he's
every time.
He's the greatest. He
Yeah.
did a shelf tour and a studio tour and showed where all the duct tape was,
Oh my
hanging,
God.
how his phone was hanging from the duct tape. But he had some health issues. It sounds like he's on the mend. He's on the path to recovery. Not exactly knocking on all the wood, but
Yeah.
hopefully he's back soon. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be doing a top trilogy listing video relatively soon, probably sometime in April. And yeah, there's no doubt for me, Five Warrior Angels is going to be in it for some different reasons than a lot of the other trilogies that are going to be on there. But he did enough that all of a sudden his books are in the conversation.
You know what I
And
love
it's pretty
about
cool.
what- I got it. I just have to say this out loud. What I absolutely love, and I read the after. I love like touching authors, right, or touching artists through their work. So I love when there's an afterword or a foreword, and you get a little bit closer to the artist. And I read the afterword or the foreword maybe, and he's talking about he was working cleaning carpets, and he meets the great point guard from Utah, and he says, live your dream. What are you waiting for? Try. And he goes home and starts writing that night. And it's like this guy, Brian Lee Durfee, left absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah.
He put it all out there.
It's all
like
it's
by
all
the
right
end
there.
of book 3, it's like he put it's like it's just bonkers.
It's bonkers.
Yes. He just threw everything at it. If he was going to do it, he was going to do it big and bodacious and operatic and grand and sweeping. And I'm not going to hold anything back. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to live my dream loud. And he lived it loud.
Yeah.
And I love that.
No doubt. I'm excited for whatever's coming next. There is no doubt.
Yes.
So let me ask you, other than booktubers, or is booktube your primary source for figuring out what you're going to read next?
Oh yes, it's entirely.
Isn't that interesting? Because same here. What did we do before booktube, right?
Well,
we were readers.
I will change that. Like I interviewed Jonathan Mayberry. There's some authors that I followed for a long time that aren't crazy big on booktube that I'll stick with and read their new stuff. But a lot of it, like Brian, how surreal is this, right? Janny Wirtz sent us a book. She sent you a book. She sent me a book, right?
Yeah, it's right here.
Right. I got to read that book, like quick. Like as soon as I can possibly squeeze that in. Janny Wirtz sent me a book.
Yeah.
Like that, your TBR just completely gets taken over.
Yeah.
Or some lovely person that for whatever reason is watching your videos says, hey man, this story meant something to me. I want to send this to you. Like, how are you not going to pick that up as quickly as you possibly can? Or these people that are living their dreams because just waking up in the morning and looking in the mirror is a lie if they don't hit the chair and write and self-publish and get their story out there, sends you something to read. Like,
right. How do you shelve it? Right.
Right. Like I agonize over trying to get to so many things so quickly.
I think that's going to be a challenge as your channel gets bigger. There's no doubt you're going to get more, not less, books coming to you. And at some point, you're going to have to be somewhat, I got 30 books this month. I have time to read 6 or 7 maybe. And you don't audiobook.
Yeah, I don't.
So, I mean, do you typically have more than one book going at a time, or you just plow through the books? So you're doing one book at a time.
I have old man brain. I have to do one book at a time, and because I go all in when I read a book. It's very visual for me. I really become immersed in it, and I just start theater background. I start trying to act out characters and understand motivations and behind what they're doing, and it's like getting more than one. I could, but I don't think I would enjoy it as much.
I'm with you. I don't do that. Mike does.
But I have
that.
already had to email some authors that were very kind and wanted to send me something and say, I have to stop taking some things because I have to. It's not fair for me. I have so many things waiting that I really want to read these things for these people that I've taken. So I've had to do a bit of that already.
Yeah, I mean it's only going to get more of that.
For you, it's the same, right? Like the same, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, hey, breaking news here first. My TBR for April video is coming out on Friday, and that book that you just mentioned right here, Dryad Hell's Chasm, I'm starting that April 1st. Oh. I could not wait. I couldn't shelve it. I was like, you know what? When somebody of that caliber takes time out of her day to send you a book and communicate with you in that manner, it's fantastic. Every time I watch Janny Wirtz on anybody's show,
I learn. Spirit animal. She's
right.
my spirit animal. Yeah, wisdom, artistically,
it's just everything.
The woman is she's on a different plane.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And us as relatively small booktubers are incredibly fortunate that the large publishers half the time don't know what they're doing. And it inspires, savvy authors like a Janny Wirtz to go, hey, you know what? If these publishing houses have their heads, wherever they have them, I'm going to just do it on my own. And I'm going to
Yeah.
find people that are interested in my work. And I'm going to find
Yeah.
people that know how to communicate.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? Like, in a world, I got to pinch myself that I can have contact with authors like that.
Right.
And it's in a world like this where, hey, Christopher Rocchio's selling out runs now because
Right.
of Daniel Green and Petrick
Yeah.
and Mike beating the drum for
Yeah.
a long time first, right? But it's not New York Times critics anymore.
Right.
It's people that it's like, hey, that guy's like me. He likes, or that girl's like me, or that lady's
Right.
like me, or that man's like me. They like what I like. I'm going to kind of tune in for that and see what they thought of this. It's so different. The role of the critic has become such a different animal, And people
Absolutely.
are behind the curve on it.
Well, yeah, because again, back in the day, whatever the New York Times editorial thought about a particular book or however much
Sure.
they got paid to feature that particular review, that was it. Now, it's interesting because not only are there more books than ever because of the growth of independent publishing and self-publishing, now we have all these, dare I say, influencers like you and I to some degree that will go on and share what we think is good. And you know what? If one person bought and read that book, guess what? We're an influencer. Even in our ancient ages,
Yeah.
we are influencing people.
Truly
And
strange.
what kind of a strange new world are we living in that you and I are influencers?
Right?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, another one that's in the chat is Nick Horvath, and you and I both read Sledge versus a Labyrinth.
Yeah.
I just finished it a couple of days ago, and talk about capturing the essence of northern Minnesota. Wow, he's absolutely dead on the money.
Is he?
Yes. I think I just unsold Jacob on moving to Minnesota.
Well, he hadn't read that book. I won't let him read it.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, it's an action movie, and it's an 80s action movie. And
Oh, it's one of those. Again, he lived his dream loud, and I dug that, right?
yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. I know, and obviously we all know that it's a tag team effort at Talking Story. What's your process for creating content on the channel? Because I know you do, and maybe I'll try to kind of narrow that down so it's not
Yeah.
such a giant question.
Yeah.
So you've got different segments that you do. That you'll do a weekly reader on a Sunday. You will do the Talking with Tubers. You will do the artist's journey interviews. You will do your kind of regular Thursday, whatever is on John's mind to talk about. It might be a TBR, it might be a book haul, it might be whatever. As you look at each one of those types of videos, what's the process like for you in creating the content? And if you want, you can go one by one and kind of share
Okay.
it with us. Sure.
Okay. I mean, I try and do one artist journey interview a month.
Okay.
And for that, I'm going to try, I will make sure I have the utmost respect for people that have the confidence, and the razzmatazz to have somebody on that they haven't read yet. I don't have that, man. I have to have read their book.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I have to have read their book, so I make sure I read their book. And then for like Artist Journey, I try and have 10 questions that
Okay.
I have for myself. And then we just start talking, and I try and get try and just like you're doing now, you try and steer it around and get what you want in there. For Talking with Tubers, I don't prepare anything at all. I sit down and we send a link, and I go, okay, we're going to talk, and we're going to talk to people on the chat, and here we go. I don't do it.
That's it.
I do absolutely nothing.
I love that.
I don't prepare at all. If I'm doing a TBR, I will have gotten the stack of books that I'm going to do for the month, and I sit them here, and I sit down, and I tell Jacob to turn the camera on, and we do it. I don't prepare whatsoever.
Wow.
If I do the Sunday wrap up,
maybe some bullet points or not
Nope.
even.
Sunday wrap up, I will,
Yeah.
because I have old man brain. And it's like, What
Sure.
did we do on the channel last week? I better write that down or I'll not
Yep.
remember. What do we have coming up next week? I better write that down. But I mean, my bullet points for Weekly Reader will be on a Post-it note.
That is, yeah, that is very cool to do. I love the fact that you have a desk in front of you when you are doing your stuff. I don't. And
You should, yeah. It makes all the difference in the world.
it's, I tell you, behind the scenes, folks at BeltTube, it's hilarious. When I'm filming a normal video, any bullet points that I might have are probably 5 or 6 feet away from me in
I couldn't do that.
gigantic type directly underneath the camera. That
that's
I
awesome.
try to remind myself, that, hey, don't forget this, don't forget. I went through, oh my God, I don't even know how many videos I went through without asking people to ever comment on anything, without asking anybody to ever like or subscribe. And I finally get done with the video and I'm watching it and saying, oh, Jesus,
Yeah.
that call to action, I sort of kind of left that part out.
I should have done that. What other stuff do I do? Like, for a book review, like I'll do like the 5 world building, plot, pace, prose.
Yes.
I'll do those 5 things. So I'll have a Post-it note and I'll write out what star level I gave for each of those things. And then I don't prepare or write anything else. I don't prepare or write anything for anything, basically.
How do you
very rarely?
How do you determine which books get a full-on review like that?
I mean, honestly, it's what happens that I have time for. Like, you fit in, like this coming month, hopefully I can get Viking to reschedule. So maybe I'll have 2 Talking with Tubers this month, right?
Sure.
And then I'll have 1 artist journey, and then you got a TBR. And then if you had enough books that you want to, or you got something from someone that you absolutely have to thank someone for, I want to take the time to do a book haul video.
Right.
We're going to do a video because we're going to the signing with Christopher Rocchio.
Yep.
And someone at that signing has agreed to do our next hijack TBR. So we're going to shoot that while we're there. So it's just like, will I have a hole somewhere in the month that I can fit a review in? If I do, I'll grab one of the books that I'm most excited about and I'll just do a review. So it's kind of what you just have time for. I usually work like a week in advance. Like I know what we're going to do next week. And then when we start getting close to Sunday, we'll figure out what we're going to do the week after. Except for like Artist Journey or stuff, we'll plan a little bit further in advance because people's schedules are busy and stuff like that.
And I think you want to give it a little bit of adequate time to give people time in their schedule.
But I can tell, like you put a fog machine and a costume and it's like you wrote something and you're like, I don't do any of that, man. I sit down and just start yapping.
Well, I mean, I love your channel, and clearly, close to 5,000 other people have chose to hit the subscribe button on your channel. And I'm sure plenty of people watch Talking Story that haven't yet felt good to hit that subscribe button, but they will, and they're going to feel good. They're gonna, you will get them. There's no doubt. They will keep coming back. That's an interesting process that you have. And I think it probably keeps it fresh for you, right? Because, when you do a Talking with Tubers, it's just let loose. You don't have to do the 5 categories of a book review. And when you're doing the artist journey, it does involve having to read the book first, but you can kind of plan that out in your life a little bit, to schedule that.
Yeah, you make it part of your TBR that month. I mean, you just, I'll put it in the TBR where it's going to be before I talk to that person, because again, hats off to anyone that can pull that off. Like I know Beard does it a lot and he pulls it off so well. He just gives these people a platform to come on and get their work out. And it's like, I have such admiration for it, but I would not feel like
I couldn't do it. I told him I couldn't do it.
Yeah. There's no way.
But it works for him because again, I think what your point is that he offers a platform. And come on and talk about your book, or come on and talk about your channel. And he's not necessarily trying to do a deep dive of everything that he got out of that particular work. He's saying, hey, I've got this great channel. Lots of people watch me. Right. Please come on.
And lots of people need
promote
this
yourself.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. It's so cool.
And come support yourself. And the one thing that, that Matt Beard of Darkness does, I think, better than anybody is his enthusiasm is off the charts, man.
He's one of those people, and it's like he had me on early on, and he said something that has stuck with me, and it's like, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but something like, I'm I'm not confident sometimes, because he came to reading later, and
Right.
I'm not confident sometimes to put my thoughts or ideas out about what I've read. And it's like, man, did the art give you an emotional response? Did it impact you in some way? Have the most you have the key to the kingdom, my friend. It's as valid for your input as anybody else on the face of the planet, because you're living your life with your soul and your family, and it impacted you in some way, and you share that with us. That's huge. That's what art is.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, for one of the things that I think is great for him and his viewers is that he did come into reading late.
Yes.
And there's plenty of people that are like that. And specifically science fiction and fantasy does not have a lot of gatekeepers that are like, oh, you're not cool enough, to read to join our club. No, we're excited. We were all the nerds that were reading this stuff.
Yeah,
If somebody else gets into it, we're like, oh my God, one of us,
Yeah.
join our
Read
party.
this one and this one and this one and this one. Yeah.
Right. We get excited. And I think there's so many people on BookTube or just YouTube in general that will run into a channel like Bearded Darkness and go, here's a guy who's not been reading all of his life, but he's taken to it relatively recently. Maybe I could too. And I don't need to have read Lord of the Rings when I was 8 years old. Maybe I've never read one before. So I think that, I don't know how I got into talking about Bearded Darkness. But
I don't either, but I found he's
great.
enormously empowering for me too. Like I absolutely could talk about
It
Matt
puts a
for
smile
while.
on your face, right?
Yeah, every time, man.
How do you not
Every
turn him
time.
on and have a smile on your face?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. And you sort of mentioned it a moment ago, but you said, you've got lots of books coming in. You're not an e-reader guy, are you?
It's weird, man. You go through phases. Like I'll hit that point like everybody and go, I've got too much stuff. I've got to thin down. I've got to shoot all this stuff out of the airlock. And I'll think, I'm just going to e-read. Why am I packing my house full of books? I'm going to e-read. And I've gone through those phases where I'm going to move these books out, move these comics out, and I'm just going to e-read. And I always come back. Every time I come back.
To the physical.
Always. And I always go, God, I wish I had that book back. I wish I had those comics back. You know, every time. It never fails. I don't have an e-reader. I use my iPad.
Sure.
So it can get kind of rough on my eyes
Yeah.
sometimes.
They're not great for doing books.
Yeah, but if I got something from NetGalley early,
Right.
something like that, like I will use it.
Sure.
But I prefer, it's such a tactile thing.
Oh, God, you and I are the same brain sometimes. I was just about to say that tactile
And with
feeling.
indie too, right? Like
Right.
these people work with their artists to put the package together. And everything about it is from their soul. Why would you not want that in your hands? Yes.
Like this book in particular, I grab because the quality of the paper is outstanding.
Yeah.
The paper in the Adan trilogy is better than the paper that I buy at Barnes & Noble or the books that, come at Barnes & Noble. So
and I got the first book because it was on sale, I think for like a couple dollars or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And it's like, oh, how can I say no to that? Dr. Chase's book. Sure, I'll get that.
Sure.
And I read it, and I immediately had to reach out to Dr. Chase and go, I have to have all these on my shelf. Like this is not, I can't, you're going to make me buy a book 2 times because I can't, you're making me break my rule, buy book 2 times because I can't not have this on my shelf.
Absolutely. And I will tell people that are watching the channel, if you are kind of like you're debating, should I get physical copies? Should I get an e-copy? Because sometimes they're a little bit cheaper on the Kindle. Here's my advice from somebody who's read a lot of books and have read, plenty of both. If you ever think you want to have a physical library in your home or your apartment or eventually some point in your life, particularly for some of you younger viewers, if you can, I encourage you to get a physical book because there are series that you don't see on the shelf behind me that are some of my favorites of all time. The Dresden Files. what's the other one? The Sandman Slim books. What's the one? Robin Hobb, Realm of the
Yeah.
Elderlings.
Yeah.
I've read all of them, every
But
single
you got them
book,
on the e-reader,
but
right?
they're all on the e-reader. And
Yeah.
wouldn't they look spectacular on the shelves behind
Yeah.
me? So,
if
but,
I told you some of the comics I sold.
oh, by the way, two things I want to bring up real quick. For everybody who's watching, don't touch that dial, because as we get a little bit further along, and we're not going to go forever tonight, but we are going to break some news tonight. So
Okay.
I want everybody to know that there is some breaking news coming later tonight. Also, e-reader all day, let's argue. Well, we will be arguing, and we're going to be arguing next Wednesday night because
Kindles
Darko-
it's right there in the name for Darko, right? Kindles and Kicks. Like, he
Darko-
loves his Kindle.
the host of Kindle and Kicks will be my guest next week on For Whom the Bell Tolls.
He is so awesome. His last video of the 10 things that he loves about
BookTube. Oh yeah,
I teared up, man. Like, I teared, because it was so much my personal journey too.
Yeah.
And to see somebody else experience it, I mean, it made me emotional.
The man has a big future on BookTube. There is no doubt in my mind. He is about as nice as you get. He is incredibly supportive, and he's done, to some degree, followed a similar track in what I did, and that's find your favorite booktubers and support them. Show up for the live stream, show up in the chats, show up, in the comment sections, watch the videos, and eventually end up collaborating. And that's exactly what we're doing next Wednesday. So
yeah, I will be there.
But
I love me some Darko.
Dark, he's very cool. He's going to teach me about sneakers. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for it, because I'm actually going to show some of my sneakers on stream next week.
Do you have cool sneakers?
No, they're terrible. We're going to have Darko's first facial reactions.
Oh, it's going to,
to what
you're going to break Darko.
Camera.
You're going to break him.
He may leave BookTube forever.
But he's so nice, though. He's going to be so nice to you. He's still going to be nice.
It just might be Kicks from now.
Yeah,
it's going to be terrible. I'm going to get scolded in every possible way. But moving on a little bit, how do you balance the reading time that it takes? Because you upload 3, did you always upload 3 videos a week, or is that something relatively new?
You know what? We started that when we started doing Weekly Reader. Like, Jacob and I were talking, and it's like, I was like, I think I could do a weekly update. Like, everything goes through him,
Sure.
It's like he's got a job and he's got things going on. And it's like, hey, I think I could do a weekly update, low stress, like just where I'm at with books and kind of what's going on. If we want to do that. And he's like, yeah, that seems, because the thing again, it's like, we don't write anything down really. We don't do takes. Like, he turns the camera on and I yap for 20 or 30 minutes and then he uploads it, basically, is what happens. So
it's very cool.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, we could do that. No problem. So I think we're on 30 something.
Yeah.
Weekly Reader.
Yeah.
So I guess we've been doing like 3 a week for 30 something weeks.
I see. Okay, so that was really the addition.
That was the third.
That was the third.
Like, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that's more than 6 months, so that's really interesting. Do you find it difficult to balance work plus the content creation plus sticking to a manageable reading level? Because we all have TBRs that are bigger than our eyeballs and our brains can manage.
Do you do this? Like, every month I'll do that TBR video, and we'll turn out the camera and I'll look at the stack and go, am I stupid? Like, there's no way I'll read this in a month.
Well, when we talk about stupid, there was this booktuber that I know that did something called a DNF challenge.
Oh, dude, I'm a huge Clive Barker fan. I saw your challenge, like there's good books in there, man.
Yeah.
Like, I love Weave World.
Well, I mean, and my point is, I do look at these stacks sometimes and go, oh my God. Now, for that particular challenge month.
That was a hard month.
That one was more of a trepidation type of a feeling that my God, if all of these booktubers couldn't finish these books or chose
Right.
not to for whatever reason, what am I signing myself up for? And am I doing this, just to make content, or am I genuinely curious? And I asked myself that question. I was actually very curious to know why, like somebody like John Minton, who loves Weave World,
Yeah.
right? That Madison Goodyear was like, nope, I'm pulling a
Yeah.
nope on this one.
It's weird because,
Right. It's a fact.
it's a fact from the 80s. In the 80s, I was in LA hitting Harlan Ellison's store, Dangerous Visions, and going to signings and meeting Clive Barker a couple times and meeting Neil Gaiman a couple times and meeting all these people. So a lot of my stuff that I love from that time is people I was meeting. And I met Clive several times. Nicest guy in the world. This is a original sketch that Clive did for me
Very cool.
here on my shelf. Yeah. So
Awesome.
he just busted a Sharpie out one night and did that for me.
That's incredible.
A super nice guy, right? So when I come to his works, like, here's a guy pushing the boundaries of horror fiction where he's getting to the very essence of who we are, our DNA, what drives us, sexuality to procreate, and how we live our life, and peeling back the layers of what makes an other and the shoes he's had to fill and walk in to be in that category of other just for the person he's loved. There's so much going on in that. If you meet the man and start reading his books from that
Sure.
aspect,
Well, yeah.
it's just special to me in that way.
I think that anytime you have a personal connection with the author, and I also think that, with the exception of maybe Stephen King, because he's just Stephen King,
Sure.
most authors are so magnanimous with their fans, particularly on social media these days, that you don't see with high level musicians, you don't see with A-level actors. But apart from maybe Stephen King, pretty much every significant author, Robin Hobbs, I've had, chit chats with her back and forth in different comments on Twitter. It's an amazing thing. So I do appreciate what you're saying. Having had met Clive Barker and
Yeah.
getting
And that was back in
cool
the day when
sketch.
you didn't have social media, right? You would meet him
Right.
in person. But I mean, yeah. I mean, Anne Rice I met, Stephen King never met, but it's like, yeah, he's
Right.
this guy would be bum rushed if he kind of came out, like.
Right.
But it's such a weird world to have contact with these people. It's strange.
Yeah. I mean, one of a couple of highlights of my life, I think was like Neil Gaiman either retweeted me or
Oh wow.
he either retweeted me or answered something or thanked me or did something. I don't know what it was, but I remember going, oh my God, I have some kind of a connection with Neil Gaiman. This
Yeah.
is just the coolest thing in the world. Bill Burr, the comedian, actually did retweet me. And
Wow, that's cool. I love Bill Burr.
all of a sudden I had 15,000 views on Twitter.
I met Neil Gaiman like early on in the Sandman run, early on, when he was not Neil Gaiman yet.
Right.
Yeah.
He actually used to live real close to me.
Really?
Yeah. So he used to live, I think, in Wisconsin, sort of close to the border of Minnesota. And my guess is Tori probably lives currently fairly close to where Neil Gaiman used to live in Wisconsin. So
Wow.
maybe he's even still there. I don't know, but we were
Super cool.
talking about TBRs, and
Oh, yeah.
and as two guys in their late 30s, like we are, right, tend to do, we go off on some tangents.
Yeah.
But so have there been months where you've put that TBR together and you're like, didn't do it, couldn't do it, or have
Not
you
yet.
just powered through it?
But every month, I think this is the month.
This is
But
the
you know
month.
what? I used to log a lot of hours on the PS5 playing video games. That's completely stopped.
Same.
I used to watch a lot more TV than I do now. I have watched some good things here lately. But I mean, to find the time to log, like 100 pages a day, I mean, it takes a chunk out of the day.
There's no doubt. But
You
my
know?
gaming has completely gone down the toilet too.
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
I played
same.
Starfield when it came out, and that was I think in September. And I didn't start the channel till really October. No, wait, when did I start the channel? November. So I started the channel in November, and really since then, there's been no time for gaming. And I always have an Audible book going at the same time as a physical book. So I'm actually consuming
Yeah, you're like doubling up. Yeah.
at the double rate, and it's still, taking time. But
Yeah.
I get a little bit of TV, and I do like For All Mankind.
Oh, I love For All Mankind. I
So
love For All Mankind.
are you current on? Are
I
you
am
current on
caught
that?
up on that. I'm caught up on that. Yeah.
Are there? I'm on season 4, and I'm about halfway through it. Is that whole season out already?
Yes.
It is. I think it has been for me a little bit of a fall off on season 4 to the other 3 seasons, but it's
Yeah.
still good.
It's still good, but it's not my favorite season. But it is still good.
Yeah,
It gets better as it goes forward, and you start to hit that ticking clock of the season.
Sure,
It
it ramps up a bit.
yes, definitely.
Didn't they do an amazing job aging those actors? I mean, as a theater guy,
Yeah.
you must be watching that going, "Oh my God, Ed Baldwin looks like he's 100 years old all of a sudden."
Yeah, and that guy is a good-looking guy. Like he
Right.
does not look old.
Did
Yeah.
did you ever watch Altered Carbon?
Oh yes.
What a series that was.
Yeah.
That was something that I was so sad when they canceled. And
Takashi Kovacs, man, he goes forward in the books. Like
Right.
there's more story to tell there, but
There
that couldn't
is.
have been a cheap show to do.
there isn't, but the guy that played Poe was so good, and that character itself was just. And even though my parents are probably watching this, even though I'm not doing another nightclub, if I was going to do another nightclub, something like they had, I think at the very first season premiere of season 2, where
Yes.
they had this kind of dystopian bar setting in a cyber world, is exactly what I would do if
That
I
would
was
be cool.
if I was going to do another one. But Mom and Dad, I'm not doing another one, promise. Anyway, so let me ask you this, because we're both relatively new, and
Yeah.
our memories of our first initial, content creation is relatively recent. What advice would you give to aspiring content creators looking to break into this? Like, what would you suggest? Because not everybody's going to have a Jacob, right? And not everybody's going to have the long reading history and some of the moments in life that you've had. But for just the random person out there that's contemplating it, what advice do you offer?
Well, I'll tell you, if I didn't have, I don't know how you guys do it. Like Brian, I don't know to put something together and get the costume and write it and then edit it, and then it's like it's so much. Like I sit down and yap for a bit, and then he does. I don't know, man. I'll tell you, the one thing I could tell you is that I would really recommend is love what you're reading. Love what you're reading. Like, don't try and game the system by, oh, here's what people want me to read. Here's what's hot. Like, read what you love. Love what you're reading. And, like you start to find in comments, people recommending to you, and you start going down these rabbit holes, and it's like, go down the rabbit holes and go down the ones that love what you're reading, because that passion is gonna come through. I take real seriously, like I had to review Kelly Link's new book because I accepted an early copy from NetGalley. And I love Kelly Link. She's one of the best short story writers that I know, right? And yeah, right, Pat? So I read her first novel. I thought I was going to love it, and it just didn't hit. It just didn't hit for me. But I really think that I really take seriously, there's a role that the critic has to have to be well thought out in what didn't work for you personally, and to lay that out there, because this could be somebody's favorite book. I mean, someone coming from a different walk of life, this is going to be their favorite book.
Right.
And I don't want to get in the way between that person finding that book. Like, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So I think there's integrity. I think you have to be honest, but at the same time, I think you have to take the role of somebody's criticizing work very seriously and don't just go off on a rant.
Right.
I mean, this is an artist that struggled for a long time to do the best work they could do. They at least deserve your well thought out reasons why it didn't connect to you as an individually, personally, and then an understanding that everyone else is different in a subjective art form interpreting it, right? So I would say read what you love and take seriously. Don't just go off on a rant because you think it'll get clicks. I mean,
Right.
I guess maybe that's holding me back. Maybe that would get clicks, but I would just say read what you love and you know,
I mean,
be who you are.
I think there's a time and a place for rants when it's really like something that is meaningful to you, but you do it in sort of a positive rant, if there is such a thing, not just crapping all over something, but in some regard, in every regard, I agree with you that in content creation, you really do need to do what you're into doing, because if you
Yeah.
are chasing clicks with rant videos, or like on my channel, you've never seen me do a Brandon Sanderson video. Why not? They would do extremely well. Everybody's looking for Brandon Sanderson videos.
Yeah.
The reason why is because I've read everything in the Cosmere. I read it prior to getting started. I don't really feel a passion to start talking about books that I read a long time ago. If it happens to come up, then great, maybe I'll do a video, but I'm not out there making Brandon Sanderson content because I think I'd be doing it for probably the wrong reasons.
Right.
And looking to try to grow the channel rather than talking about something that I legitimately want to talk about.
Right.
Which can be a challenge, you know.
And that's for me, that's one of the authors I had no idea that existed.
Right.
When I came to BookTube and found out there's a human Storymatic 3000 that has created this entire.
Isn't that insane?
It's crazy, man, what he can crank out and do. And he's like Jack Kirby. He's created this entire cosmos with different worlds. He can tell whatever story he wants. Like I'm kind of smitten by it. So I'm trying to catch up. That's why I talk about it, because I had no idea he existed. Right?
Well, I think in your case, it's absolutely legitimate. It's new stuff that you're reading, that you're excited about, that you're going to share. That makes sense to me. Yeah. Much like I'm very excited to read Janny Wirtz's book, because I know people have read it. I know that, you know, I tend to align with what their opinions are. I'm legitimately excited to read it, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So for me, that is more compelling content to make than, like you said, kind of chasing those clicks. But I think that that's excellent advice to give to aspiring creators.
I see Matt in the talk. I love Matt Fantasy Books. He was so honest and unvarnished, and he'll finish a book and just start talking about it when he sets it down. And he'll have negative reviews, but it's always from his take on it, you know, to the point where, oh, this is one of the ones I absolutely love. Oh, there he is. One of the ones I absolutely love him is like he sat down after reading, I think it was Sarah J. Maas, with his wife on one side and his wife's friends on the other side. Did you see that one?
I didn't.
Oh my God.
Wait a minute. Yes, I did. I did.
Yeah.
There was three of them in that. Yes.
Yes. And what a perfect example of, okay, this for me, this was terrible. And then two people on either side of him going, what a great book it was. So, I mean, I absolutely love that about him, because he's got so much integrity. He's going to say exactly what he feels, but he always backs up, this worked for me, this didn't work for me. Here's other views on it at times when he's doing something like Sarah J. Maas that he fully expected not to like.
Right.
Like there's ways to do it that are more creative and inventive than even I have stumbled onto, and that's one of the things I truly appreciate about him. And Matt, and Mike does the same thing, right? Here's what worked. Even a book that he loves, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, because nothing's perfect, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that there is a point of differentiation between a rant for the sake of a rant video versus ranting about something that you legitimately are passionately displeased with.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair game. If you are going to have a channel where it doesn't always have to be rainbows and sunshine. So I hope anybody who's watching this isn't thinking that I am always having to, have a positive slant on something. If you are seriously displeased and you're passionately displeased, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Where I run into it is where it just seems obvious somebody is looking for clicks and looking for, they don't really care one way or the other about the book. They're just making content that's just kind of negative because it might get picked up in the algorithm. So little bit different.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, because we're not going to go too much longer tonight because we are both in our 30s, like I said.
Yeah, we got to get our beauty sleep, right?
And the way that we stay young is making sure that all of our skincare regimen. And by the way, when watching those old videos, you were pretty clean shaven back in some of those early ones.
I go back and forth.
Up until the channel, I had a beard for probably 10 years. And
why'd you shave it?
It took 10 years off me. I had to do it. I was like, you know what? I'm single. I got, I got, look.
See, I'm not, I got no one to impress.
I'm 87 years old, folks. I gotta look
great for 87.
For 87, I look effing great. There's no doubt about it. So we've talked about your channel a lot, and I'm interested to know, and it's something that you kind of hinted at a little bit earlier, and I want to bring everybody up to speed. What's next on the agenda for John Minton and Talking Story? You had mentioned that there could be something in the works that it's important that people become aware of.
Well, look, it may not be important people become aware of, but okay, I'll tell you this. I've had this question and I've kind of danced around it, but I'm gonna throw it out here, right?
Yep.
So my wife and I built a theater company, had a kid, got into the arts, became a filmmaker, young filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker. He graduates college. First thing we do is do a short film together, he and I. So we're always, we do things like called the Summer of Creativity in the house, where everyone has projects, everyone's creating something, everyone's doing something.
That is amazing.
And so right before COVID, Jacob comes home from school and he says, in my screenwriting class, I turned in a story idea and my professor was like, that's not a story there. You don't have a story here. This is. So it's like, well, let me see it. So I started looking at it. And it's like, well, I think there's a story here, this, and then, started looking at it like this. And then soon after that, COVID hits. So he's home from school for, who knows how long, right? And then his mom gets involved, who again had gone to one of the very prestigious MFA creative writing programs. So our next project, as a family, we now have a finished book.
Wow.
And this is a book that is written by all three of us.
Brian's iPad.
I was trying to hit the applause button. Shit. I broke your amazing momentum with my shitty
I don't
iPad.
care. So there's a finished book, and
incredible.
So we call it the pseudonym we use is J.A.J. Minton, because we basically ran it like a writer's room. We wouldn't let anyone get away with anything. It's like, no, there's a plot hole there. Go back and rework this. That character motivation doesn't work. Go back and rework this. One person would do macro overall arcing plot. One person would do character work. So we all come together, and then it all goes through the funnel of my wife, who is one of my favorite writers of all time. Her prose is absolutely phenomenal. And we're all putting this together, and sometimes we would use theater games like, hey, this isn't working, this character isn't working. Give me a few days, let me work up something, and then I'll come in and I'll try and improv something, and we'll see if we can get some dialogue. So we did stuff like that, and then we recorded those sessions, and if it worked, we transcribed it. So we went through all this kind of stuff working a certain way, and there is a book.
I'm speechless. It's hard to make me speechless. Yeah, that is not what I was thinking that you were going to drop. And that is like a billion times better than anything I thought you were going to say.
So
What can you share so far
Okay.
besides there is a book without getting into any territory that you're not ready to talk about yet? Because
Where we are,
that is breaking news.
yeah.
So I'm happy with just the fact that there is a book. But is there anything else regarding this project that you'd like to
So
share?
where we are right now is it's out into the agent's hands.
Okay.
Not that we have an agent, but we're doing the whole thing where you just send it out and you see what kind of feedback you get. And we are very interested, just like we built our own theater company and found our own audience. We are very interested in the indie publishing scene.
Sure.
But my wife, having gone through this program, was like, look, we're missing a step if we don't do this, because when you put a query together and you start to break down very succinctly of this is what my story is, this is what the characters are, this is the inciting incident in a very concise letter, it makes you think about your project a different way. And you probably get one or two more really good passes out of querying and looking at it that way
Sure.
that you wouldn't get otherwise. So we're probably going to collect thousands of no's, right? So we're sending it out just to get like this one or two more passes out that we're thinking, unless lightning strikes. And then after we spend that kind of time, we might, I would think probably with our history of doing a theater company and trying to find an audience in the past, we'll probably just do it ourselves and try and find an audience.
I love this. This is like the greatest news I've heard all day long. Which genre is it, if you can share?
I can share. It's completely genre blending. Think about if you had Fellowship of the Rings, where a found family, a very group of very special people are having to be brought together by somebody to address something, and that something is very much in our modern day world, so we can have a very interesting, sarcastic, satiristic through line going through it, and it's a very modern world, and it would be some type of global, like Lovecraftian apocalypse coming, and a fellowship is going to have to come together to address it.
Sign me up. I must read this book. That is awesome. What an exciting deal. And I think you're right. Your wife is right. It does make sense to get those extra passes through it. And
we've discovered amazing things. Like when you start putting the query together, it makes you think of it in a totally different way.
Right.
And we have to go back and rework that, and we have. And I tell you though, I'm getting these. After these story meetings, I get these pages from my wife, and it's like I've read some of the most amazing books since joining BookTube, and I'm reading these pages going, this could be one of my favorite reads of the year. Like this just knocks me out.
Awesome.
Like I would be so excited for people to discover what my wife can do the way I've been able to discover what she can do. Like it thrills me. And Jacob, it's his initial idea.
Right.
And he wrote a good chunk of it, So to have this young man come into his creative ability and do this in front of you, it's been, in a way, the most hardest artistic journey I've ever taken, the most humbling artistic journey I've ever taken, but it's been the most satisfying to work with Jacob and Amy, my wife, on this. And I cannot wait for people to get to see this side of them.
The family Minton. I love this. This is like, what a blessing to have such creative minds all in the immediate family like that. It's pretty rare. I think in most families you get the creative one, or you get this one or the other one. But
like I said, I totally ride their coattails. I totally ride their coattails. And it's the weird thing about it is, Brian, that it's just been such an amazing journey, right? Like just watching it happen, it's been stunning.
That is incredible. Well, folks, we've been going for a couple of hours, and I like to keep these
by like that, Brian.
Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy.
I watch, TV interviews, and the whole interview is like 8 minutes long. And once you cut out the commercials, the whole thing is about 5 minutes long. Yeah. And it's amazing how when you have people that have such common interests and passions, that time can just go so incredibly quickly. And
That's why you're so good at this. I tell you, if we'd been in a bar just drinking, talking, it'd be the exact same thing. That's why you're so good at it, man.
Thank you. You're very kind. A couple of things, housekeeping things I want to tell people, and then we're going to do what we always do with our one for the roads. So next Wednesday, as I mentioned earlier, but if you're just popping in now, we have The Bell is Tolling for Darko from Kindles and Kicks. It's going to be at the exact same time as this one, which is 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Of course, John Minton's channel is Talking Story. His link, if you are not a subscriber already, what are you even doing? Go watch his channel. He's better at this than I am by far. You're going to love it. It's
not
fantastic. His link is in the description. Of course, subscribe to his channel, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and comment here on this when you watch it, because it does help inform me, as I've mentioned in other videos, of when I schedule these, because I know that this time isn't always convenient for people around the globe. And I do want to schedule some of these that are going to be kind of Euro friendly or Australian friendly.
Yeah.
So if you're
New
watching
Zealand friendly.
Hi, Derry.
Yeah.
So if you are watching on replay, let me know in the comments when you're watching it and where you're watching it from, because I do want to accommodate all of you as well. Now, on BellTube, we always send everybody out with a one for the road. And as our 5-week-old tradition, our traditions are so ancient and historied here, for whom the bell tolls, we always ask our guest to leave us with one for the road. So John Minton from Talking Story, would you show us out with a one for the road today?
All right. Let me think. Okay. This is kind of coming off of what you asked me a little bit earlier, right? Like if I was always kind of like this when I was younger. Now, this has been a tough lesson for me, and I've not been good at it. But if I was to give somebody a one for the road, right? I would say it is enormously important to always celebrate your victories. Look for them and find them and mark them in time and celebrate your victories, because too often we get wrapped up in how could I do that better? Where did I come up short? Why do I not have all the things I want to have? And we're not taking the time to recognize and celebrate our victories. And a moment of kindness costs you absolutely nothing, but a moment of kindness to yourself can be absolutely priceless. So take the time to always celebrate your victories.
Agreed 100%. I could not think of a better one for the road. I love that. It's something my sister has mentioned to me privately, because I'm not very good at that.
I was horrible, been horrible at it for so much of my life.
To this day, I'm still not very good at this. People say, hey, you're doing this and that. I'm just kind of, I blow it off. But
yeah,
I love that, folks.
Won't take a compliment. Won't take a compliment. Stop.
Yeah.
Take the compliment.
Yeah. Folks, John has given us some wisdom here. I think you'll go far if you do celebrate your own victories, as John has. It's great advice. It's a great one for the road. John, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. This has been a blast. It has been,
I've looked forward to this for a week. It has been so much fun.
You are a permanent invite. You have a standing invitation. Anytime you want to come on this program or anything that I do, live, pre-recorded, whatever, you're a joy. I learned something from all your videos, but more importantly, I do appreciate your friendship most of all. And we are brothers from another mother. There's no doubt.
No doubt.
And I, there was mentioned, folks, that I think John and Jacob are maybe going to Dragonsteel.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Oh, we're going. Are you going to be there?
So BellTube, might have to find a way to possibly show up at Dragonsteel with a camera. So
we'll bring a camera, and I know the Tutor Ramble is coming. Other people are coming. Like, we're going to have, Patrick is trying to get his visa to come. Like, dude, I hope we all get together and have the best book party ever.
I think having an unfiltered multi-cam favorite booktubers at Dragonsteel might be something that all of our audiences and all of the people that enjoy the content that we put together would really get behind. I think we'd have a blast. I know we'll have a blast.
Oh, we're gonna
There's
have
no
a
doubt
blast.
about it. I have no
And
idea if I'll pay attention to anything that's going on at the convention. I'd be there to hang out with you guys. And
Oh
my
yeah,
friends
man,
there. Yeah.
100%, 100%. And the Brian, if you ever pull the trigger on, can I come over? I'm telling you,
Oh, I'll be there. I'm coming over. This is happening. I started.
this is a destination.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I recently did a Patreon, and one of the reasons is that the funds from that will go to things like Can I Come Over, where I get on
Yes.
an airplane and fly out to another booktuber's place. And the cool part about that is all of my favorite booktubers have absolutely said, yeah, you can come over.
Yeah.
No doubt. So a lot of the folks that you guys have seen on this channel, a lot of the folks you've seen me talk about, yeah, there's a real chance that for when I get the Can I Come Over going, hopefully this summer, we're taking this show on the road. So that would be awesome.
Right there. Hijack your TBR. I can do it really quick. I'm telling you right now, Brian. you
Okay,
haven't-
okay. Give me a book
Yeah.
to read.
Jonathan Mayberry, the very first Joe Ledger novel, Patient Zero.
Patient Zero.
Yes.
Perfect.
You love urban fantasy.
I do.
You love Dresden. This
I
is
do.
like Dresden of SEAL Team 6 Special Forces. Go for it.
I have now been hijacked by Talking Story. My TBR is in jeopardy. Stay tuned to the next episode for Whom the Bell Tolls, starring Darko from Kindles and Kicks. John, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who's watched us live. Thanks for everybody who's participated in the chat. You guys are wonderful. You are some of my favorite people. You are the reason why I do this. It's a blast hanging out with my guests, but it's a blast hanging out with all of you in the chat. And thank you to everybody who's watching on replay. It really does make a difference to helping our channel grow. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you next time for Whom the Bell Tolls.